BulkLoads Podcast, your number one resource for everything bulk freight trucking.
All right, that's the concept.
Hey guys, Jared Flinn with the BulkLoads Podcast. Got Tyler in here with me.
What's going on?
Thanks for filling in last week.
Yeah, you're back. I'm glad that you're back here with us again.
Happy to be back. Happy New Year to all of you out there listening to the podcast. Before we get rolling, we're going to do another truck feature here. And this week's truck feature, we're going to pull up, it's
Patrick Megason, I think so.
Yeah, out of Speaking, Kansas. Yeah, he's been a BulkLoads member for almost 3 years. And this is a cool picture. It's a Peterbilt truck, but in the snow. And yeah, it's just a cool picture showing how cold it is.
Yeah, I always love the snowy pics. The fall and the snowy pics are the best.
Yeah. So, but anyways, hope you enjoy that one. If you have pictures out there that you want featured, send them to podcast@bulkloads.com.
Yep.
And we'll go through them. And man, we're happy to feature those on there. I don't know about you, but I love seeing those pictures. I could probably throw up 5 to 10 and just look at the different
exactly.
photos. So I'm sure most of our listeners are that way.
Yeah, definitely send them to us. We'll even consider them in the running of next year's calendar. Speaking of the calendar, we went ahead and ordered some more. Jared, we got a couple hundred people still wanting calendars. I think we ordered 500, already got those sent out, so we had to place another order because they're still being wanted. So if you have not received a calendar yet, but you still want one, comment on this YouTube video, the podcast, or simply just email us podcast@bulkloads.com and we'll get you one free charge.
Yeah, cool. Well, today's show, we're going to bring back returning guests. I think this is for the third time, Mr. Rob Brackett.
Yeah.
Rob is a friend of ours. He's been with BulkLoads pretty much since the inception. Rob is also a smart freight user of ours. He's actually based in Omaha, and I've been up there several times and got to meet Rob. So I consider him a dear friend. But Rob has got a new venture going on, and he was gracious to drive down here and come on the show and just talk about that. You know, one thing we preach a lot, and you can tell by BulkLoads, we are in multiple businesses, and you got to be careful you don't scatter yourself out too thin. But did you know it's actually biblical to have multiple businesses?
I did not know that.
Our pastor, he did a sermon on this, and I was looking up the scripture, and he actually, if you look in Ecclesiastes 11, and it says in the whole one, but verse 2, it actually says, invest in 7 ventures, yes, and 8. You do not know when disaster may come upon the land. But it's actually biblical to have multiple businesses.
Well, yeah, that's all the reason you need right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know many people out there. We have farmers and truckers and people that invest in that. But it's one thing that we encourage you here, because you never know when one business might lack, and you can use the other one as a hedge for that.
Yeah, exactly.
We encourage that, especially like don't put all your eggs in one basket. We stand behind trucking, but we do know the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of trucking can have different effects. So, man, what better way to prepare you? But Rob's going to come on and talk about these 2 new ventures, I think, which actually awesome. He saw the problems out there, one being in towing. And we've seen multiple articles over the past several months and even years about these predatory towing companies, especially for truckers, that charge these
ridiculous rates.
Outrageous rates.
Also, he was going into, whenever he was talking about, he actually bought a grain vac that he rents out too. But yeah, he was saying that whenever he had that accident, I mean, I just couldn't believe, you guys will have to listen to it, but that just what he was saying, how much they charge him just to clean up those gluten pellets just blew my mind.
Yeah, so Rob will have that on there too. And actually, hopefully Joe will throw some pictures up there in the podcast to see the actual unit itself. One thing about Rob, he's very much into marketing. His company is Turbo Turtle, and you can tell, man, he loves marketing, but when you see his trucks going down the road, you know it. Yeah,
just the logo.
He's very distinguished in that. So cool. Well, with that said, here is my conversation with my dear friend, Mr. Rob Brackett of Turtle. Rob, thanks for making the trek down to Springfield, Missouri.
The last time I was here, you were in a nice loft downtown. Come here, you've tripled your square footage. You have doubled your staff, and yet it still feels like home. The decorations are incredible. It feels like Christmas is in full swing.
Oh,
and so it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. God is good. We've been very blessed.
So,
but yeah, thank you for that. Well, this is your third appearance on the BulkLoads podcast. So
thank you for that again, man. I'm going to tell a quick story and then we'll get into the purpose of this podcast. But we recently had Dan Redding on our show, and it was interesting. Dan, we were talking about him growing his business from his trucking company into the brokerage. And he said he looked at you and modeled you. And like you were an inspiration and really a mentor to him to get the brokerage off. And I never heard that. And then I think that's kudos to you and your knowledge. And I've always said this personally, man, you have always been a wealth of knowledge and always enjoyed talking to you about the trucking industry. We just had lunch prior to this podcast, and man, I could listen to you. And I say that in all sincerity all day long. I mean, you bring a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you, Jared. And going back to Dan, there's things I've learned from him in our close proximity, him being, near Emporia, Kansas. There's a lot of synergies, a lot of similarities in our business, a lot of the same, successes and struggles we have between equipment, driver retention. So we have opportunities to learn from each other, grow from each other. And, I'm thankful very much for that compliment. But yeah, it's just as much things I've gleaned from him as he has from me over the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you've also been on the BulkLoads platform since 2012. So this is your 11th year. So also wanted to say thank you for being a lifelong member and supporter, not just of BulkLoads, but of Smart Freight Funding, our factoring arm as well. I can remember when we first started that business back in 2014, driving up to Omaha, having visits with you, dinners, and you giving us a lot of knowledge and insight of the factoring business. And I think that was a huge blessing to us to learn how we could be better at others in the factoring.
And a quick comment on that. I have owner operators that I broker loads out to. Some use Smart Freight, some don't. And for the ones that don't, I will say most of these other factoring companies specialize in van, flatbed, reefer. I have struggles with them as they learn the nuances of bulk freight, how to bill, how to ship, the documentation we need. With Smart Freight, it's always clean, simple. This is your specialty. Just like me, you understand the bulk world. And for folks looking for a factoring company, look at the one that specializes in the commodities you haul and not other types of freight.
Yeah, man, appreciate that. Appreciate the plug. Before we jump into it, for people that don't know you, and I welcome you to go back and listen to the other podcasts, and we'll actually put those episode links in the show notes of this podcast. But give our audience just a little scope of the size of Turbo Turtle. Truck-wise, what you guys specialize in.
So my model has changed over the years.
Yep.
I went from an asset-heavy company to now got one driver, 6 trailers I rent out. We have 13 trucks total on the road that are dedicated. Plus about when we take all the loads I broker out, that's about another three trucks a week entirely. So, enough freight for 15 to 16 trucks every week. And that's been our heart and soul for the past number of years. And, one thing I was telling you, Jared, earlier today is that my revenues have increased a lot. And I'm doing more this year with less trucks than I did last year. The dollars per truck has gone up as the expenses in the market have gone up. But also, I have really, at least for my little area, perfected great dedicated runs that keep these trucks turning better, earning more, and on the biggest thing for me, home more often.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Rob Grover, Grower Farm Trucking out of Amboy. I run a meager fleet of 40 trucks and made a major transition to bulk 4 years ago. BulkLoads helped me get the contacts I needed to succeed. And now we've got, I've bought 11 new trucks and 14 new tankers, and I don't know how many new frickin' hoppers in the last year. But as my dad says, it's lonely on top, but the food's better. And just think, your contribution by creating BulkLoads and giving people an opportunity to find freight and grow businesses has put Christmas presents under thousands of trees this year.
Yeah. And was it just, years and years of studying the market and figuring out how to get it to this level?
There was a lot of fine tuning. The customers I've worked with, you kind of have to weed out what works and what doesn't. I post more loads now on BulkLoads than I take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every dispatch service has gotten their niche. We'll go back to RC trucking. Dan Redding has done a great job in his area of Kansas at getting dedicated freight. Now he provides loads on BulkLoads for a significant portion of trucks and takes very, very few off the load boards. We sometimes will help each other out loads, but we have both now support more trucks than we take loads off the load board for. And as any dispatch service grows, that is always your goal and intention, is to have majority dedicated freight and take very few filler loads.
Yeah. That's really good insights. And it's been awesome to see your all's growth over the years. I mean, even the last 12 years, meeting you and to where you are now, even Redding, and how their business has exploded. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of others that we have got to witness and see that, and hopefully be a little part of that process as well. So it's been pretty grateful. The reason we brought you in here is we want to talk about this new venture that you got going on. And I think there's going to be a lot to discuss on this, and we may kind of dance around different avenues with this. But we recently did a podcast, and I think it's going to air before this one, with an insurance company. But man, it's like the same questions we get over and over, but they talk about, predatory tow bills. And I mean, just some of these expenses that these owner operators or small business have to eat. And I cringe every time. And I really do, because there's got to be a better way. And lo and behold, you call me one day and talk about, hey, I'm going to start my own tow company. So I'm going to let you kind of lead from there. But talk about this new venture that you have getting into the tow business.
I have to say that most companies start out of a desire to fill a need, or there's a necessity for it, or folks are frustrated with the services available to them. And over the past several years, I have been frustrated by the options for towing, the realistic, affordable options available. I have had several instances, especially with cleanup costs, where I feel like I have been taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And the costs have led to not only an immediate expense, but when it comes time for renewal, I have had difficulty or just been dropped by my cargo companies, my cargo insurance provider, based on costs due to an accident. And no one likes to talk about accidents. They are something that we do our very best through good safety procedures to avoid, with good employee practices. And the vast majority we are able to avoid, but sometimes they happen. It's amazing how, even over a 5-year span, how one or two situations can drastically affect your insurability. One of the biggest things that I've seen is cleanup costs.
Yep.
For instance, you have a grain trailer. It gets a little overloaded, or it's involved in an accident that causes it to split open. We've seen cleanup costs, not tow bills, just the cleanup costs, push $20,000 and $30,000. And that is what has led me to do two things. Both start a tow truck company based in Fremont, Nebraska. So Fremont, just slightly west of Omaha, covering the Highway 30 corridor. So about 250-mile radius of Fremont is going to be our main service area. But for folks in Omaha, Fremont, Columbus, York, Grand Island, that's going to be our main service area, both medium duty and heavy duty towing and recovery. But also with that, for co-ops, grain elevators, farmers, and for our trucking customers that need a load of grain, or even up to full flat storage and bins, I purchased a self-contained diesel-powered grain vac. One of the primary situations that led to that is 3 years ago, I had a load of gluten pellets tip over. Well, I got charged $27,000 to clean up the load of gluten pellets. And they got so much dirt in it, couldn't even salvage the load of pellets. That added insult to injury.
On that specific instance, how long, like for 27,000, I'm thinking like this was 2 weeks worth of work, or
3 hours. 3 hours for the folks to clean it up and then $27,000. The hard part was my insurance company never even balked at it. They just paid it. Even amongst my protests and frustrations, they paid the bill. But when I went for my renewal, that's where the hard part came. Instead of renewing me, they said, well, your one claim in 5 years, made you uninsurable. I had to go out and get a different company that provided less for more. And that's always seems to be the thing with insurance.
So heaven forbid somebody listen to this that happens to, but we do know the reality that accidents do happen and how we handle that. But walk through the process, because I wasn't aware of this until you explained this to me, how that works. So, and let's just say it's a non-injury accident, but truck slides off, rolls over into the ditch. Obviously, law enforcement comes in. But what is that process of who actually, because I didn't know, I was like, can't you choose who you want to clean this up? But that's not necessarily the case. Walk through the process of what happens when there is an accident like that.
So there's two situations. One is the road being blocked or not.
Yep.
If the road is being blocked, time becomes of the essence.
Yep.
And that usually limits your choices to someone who is nearby. If the accident happens off of a roadway or in a ditch, so it's not blocking the road, your time opportunities to select someone who is more affordable and maybe more careful with cleaning up the load opens up. So for instance, if, like in my situation, the load all dumped into the ditch and was not blocking the road, I could easily have had half a day or better to find a more appropriate provider to come clean that up, remove it, and hopefully be more careful in salvaging the load. So then we could at least recoup some costs with that. And that is always the ideal, is if you're off the road or on a private property and the split happens, it gives you opportunities to seek out another provider. If it happens and the road is blocked, usually that is what is called a police mandated call. If you don't have someone in your speed dial able to come quickly, they will provide someone for you. Those are usually also the most expensive calls out there.
Because a lot of those, I mean, if the police have it, they have a Rolodex, so they have a list of A, B, C, D, and they just start going to the list.
Correct.
Whoever can get there.
It's a rotation.
Yeah.
Whoever gets there quicker at whatever price it might be,
Yeah.
gets it.
Wow.
Now, we've often said this about healthcare. If you can pay cash, the bill is usually lower. Sadly, if you have to go through an insurance company, the bills are higher. With that said, I have a moral issue with some of the amounts charged. My whole goal with my company is to charge a fair price, but charge a price that I would be comfortable receiving. And at the same time, hopefully one that still allows a person to be insurable. At the end of the day, having your company get lost, having your truck be impounded until your insurance company pays a bill that can sometimes be 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
For a single truck operator, these are the things that could make or break their survivability. This is before a truck even gets paid or repaired, the bill must be first paid. Most tow companies will hold on to that truck and trailer until that bill is paid. And if it's excessive, that's where the back and forth comes. If you charge a reasonable price up front, it helps both the the trucking company, the insurance company, and it helps the tow company. We get paid quicker too. And that's the hard thing. I can't see the industry changing, but at least for me, if folks are in those service areas around, eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, I will be going out of my way to do.
Talk about, just for clarity, when those accidents happen, I know there can be different situations. They got to get the road clear, but law enforcement, they bring in tow trucking company. Where are they taking your truck? Do you have any choice in the matter, or is it?
Your truck is typically taken back to their yard, wherever that might be, and held until the tow bill is paid.
So you don't, like, once it's in their yard, like, you have no control.
Correct. Until that tow bill is paid. So this is where either you come up with cash or credit card, or you wait for your insurance company to pay it. And for some of these folks, $10 or $15,000,
No.
we don't have, that's not pocket change.
Yeah.
And we don't have that sitting around. Even for a company my size, a $15,000 bill, we'd be digging deep to pay that out of pocket. And that's why we have insurance. But at the same token, if it's outrageous, am I going to fight it? Of course I am. Because I want to be insurable come next year. And that is often the paradigm. If it's a reasonable bill, we encourage our insurance companies to pay it quickly so that we can get our truck back and get back on the road.
Yeah. I did an episode several months back where we talked about just other sources of revenue for your company and how, as a whole, we'd love to see more people. Like, we're very passionate about bulk trucking, but we know there's highs and lows with that. And how do you substitute with other sources of income? And I love what you've done over the years, because you've done other, and we may talk about some of those, but like, this is just another need that you saw out there, but could potentially another source of revenue for your company. And I think that's just awesome and again, I think this is good for listeners. And man, maybe you're in an area that doesn't compete with Rob, and that could be another value add that you could provide to that area.
For grain backing, the only other company out there is in Illinois or Grand Island, Nebraska. The gentleman in Grand Island only does train derailments. So currently, within about a 500-mile radius, I'm the only one that has a grain back for rent. So if you're a farmer, a co-op, rail company, truck driver has a load spill out, we can be there to not only clean it up, but salvage the load, keep it clean, keep it sellable, keep it salvageable. It's one thing to have a mess. It's another thing to have a load that has to go to a landfill and be wasted. Products are valuable, feed is valuable. Let's save time. Let's save the commodity. Let's lower our costs for everyone.
Yeah. What, and you've already thought about this, where do you see this going? Like, what is that vision of 2, 3, 5 years down the road with this entity?
I'm hoping this is still under Turbo Turtle. At least the grain back is.
Yep.
The tow company, the name of that is Only Tows and Recovery.
I was hoping you're going to bring that up. I would talk about that.
So it's, again, as we get towards January, which is the start date for the tow company, there will be more media on that, both Facebook, Instagram. And then also you'll get the first hoodie. I promise you.
I'm looking forward to it. That's awesome.
Again, how you have done your swag has just inspired. It's our companies are more than just ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The impression that we leave on someone else, both with our name, our marketing. There's different ways to network. It's not just in the face-to-face contact. It's on that graphic impression you can leave with someone.
Yeah.
Names are hard to remember. Half the time people forget my last name. But Turbo Turtle, him or not, he's memorable, just like BulkLoads is. And that's the thing. The impression that we leave in people as they struggle to remember, like, what's the name of that company? Oh, yeah, BulkLoads.
Yeah.
It's easy to find. It's searchable. And that's what we're hoping to do with the tow company. Only Tows is an easy name to remember. Hopefully it's one that if you get into a bind, can help you out. But Turbo Turtle's handling the grain back. We're keeping that on the ag side. The goal growth is to be able, in the next 3 to 5 years, have 3 to 4 units.
Yeah.
Some on rent, one strictly with the tow company. But hopefully this is a service that embeds us deeper with the customers that we already serve.
Yeah.
On the grain side. And that was our biggest thing is we see some of these companies already using older style PTO ones, but they're slower. This new one's going to do 6,000 bushels an hour, can load a semi every 10 minutes.
Yeah, you said it was a 14-inch auger?
14-inch. Wow. So this is not an auger. This is a straight
spout,
pipe.
Yeah, straight pipe.
It's huge. So it's a gigantic Hoover. So with a 200 horsepower motor on it. So it'll suck almost anything. So great for not only just grains, but soybean meal, DDG, any pelletized product. It'll take grain up to 30% moisture. So even if it's a little wet, it can still be sucked up.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to put information in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, but man, my goal and hope would be to really put Rob's info in, save it as your contact, because you don't know, you may be traveling up in that corridor and that happens, or maybe you may be just on the cusp or out, but man, give Rob, and I assume your information to contact either on the tow service or the grain vac. And like I said, it's just I think this is just another tool in your tool belt if you face that situation, and hopefully not get taken advantage of.
So lockouts, jump starts, tows, if you just need a winched out, winter time is coming.
Yeah, it'll be here before we know it. So, Rob, before we close out, I always love your knowledge just on the market outlook. And when we do market updates, we seem to get a lot of viewership on that. So many owner-operators, business owners are out there, they're trying to get a pulse on what the future looks like. What's that crystal ball saying? We know you can't predict that. None of us can. But what are some trends that maybe have caught your eye that you're seeing, that you're kind of looking at or noticing going into 2024?
One of the biggest thing I've seen is where loads are going has changed. And we spoke a little bit about this over lunch.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I was in Tulsa multiple times a week and taking feed loads down anywhere from Talala to Tulsa, a little further south, even going down to McAllister. And I have not been down into Oklahoma yet this year. Take that back. Excuse me. 2 loads to Oklahoma City area. But again, 2 loads is a blip on the radar.
Yeah.
Most of what we do now is Wichita North. We go up into North Dakota on I-29. I rarely get west of Highway 81. We go east to the Mississippi River. And yet, 3 years ago, that's not what I was doing. I have seen the market about every 2 to 3 years change. Dollar per mile, I've kind of put this in a couple forms. Our tandems are averaging about $247 a mile. The triples are doing about 20% more. So just under $3, and this is all dispatched miles.
Yeah.
I see that holding, the rates holding well into first quarter, second quarter next year, based on what things I'm bidding on and getting back. The biggest thing is where we're going is what needs flexibility. It's people say, can you get me, home if I live here or there? Now I can.
Yeah.
In 6 months, the lanes that we have might change. And we were talking a little bit about when loads are bought and sold, how many hands are often, in the mix behind the scenes on paper contracts. And a lot of that is what dictates where the actual commodity goes after that paper is traded. And what we're seeing now, the loads that are bought and sold now are usually paper contracts that have moved sometimes 2 to 3 months prior. So, the crystal ball is somewhat clear for the next quarter, next 3 months. Beyond that, market trading will dictate if our lanes stay the same or if feed prices dictate that loads move elsewhere. The success to any company will be the adaptability and willingness to follow that.
Yeah, that's well said. We should end on that, but I'll add that when Redding was here, we were talking about that exact same thing, but even like how their pocket or pool has condensed. And there's different soybean crushing plants that have popped up that has changed their flow. But to what you just said, being adaptive and willing to change to those market conditions, I think is going to be the key to success going forward in trucking. So, Rob, man, thank you,
Jared,
for coming
thank you for
on.
having me.
Yeah, this has been a blessing. Yeah, to come down and do this. Our first 2 were, I can still remember, I think I was shooting it from my upstairs window, and I can remember talking to you, but yeah, now we're doing this live. So it's been a blessing to produce this content out and get it out to those audience and those listeners that can value that. So thank you very much, man. Love what you're doing. Good luck on this new venture. Without a doubt, I know it'll do well, and God bless you.
Thank you, Jared. Take care.
What did you think?
Man, I can tell you, so I've been here about 5 years, Jared, and it's the coolest thing to see our members start off as owner-operators or a few truck carriers and work their way up to either multi-truck carriers or, they add on a brokerage to their business, and they're able to kind of change the way they use our platform from not only just getting loads off the board, but posting loads as well. And that's what Rob was saying, that, since they added their brokerage, they're able to post loads on the board as well. Just kind of like the same situation as Dan Redding with RC Trucking.
I think what I love, Rob, he sees problems in the industry and figures out solutions. And I don't know why. And obviously we have an umbrella of companies, but like that gets me more juice than anything when you can see that there's a problem out there and something that can be solved, or a way to make something better out there for the community. So I think that's awesome what he's doing with the tow company. Undoubtedly, I know he'll be successful with that. And then also the grain back system.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was cool that it's not just for disaster, recovery, but it can be used. I mean, he can rent it out to farmers.
Yep.
It's not just, it can be used in multi-facets, and it all indirectly complements what he's doing in his business.
Yeah, and he was saying, it was shocking that he was saying there was only a few other companies or guys that had those available to rent in the Midwest. So
yeah. Well, we'll have Rob's information down in the show notes, so be sure to contact him. You'll probably see him more active probably in our forums and in our classifieds with his other services. And again, we encourage those out there, man. If you see other needs in the industry and we can help you promote that out there, because it's going to not just benefit you all, but everybody else in the community, man, get a hold of us. We absolutely love doing that and sharing that out there for other people.
Yep, exactly.
So cool. Before we close out of here, as always, our conference is now coming up. We're in 2024, and we are now. I see at the top of BulkLoads you have like the countdown. Yeah, like 100 days or 101 days.
It's getting close.
Yeah, so now it's like, ooh, this is actually really getting close. So if you've not purchased your tickets, there is limited space. So make sure and purchase your tickets as soon as possible. We want to see you there.
Yep, Joe will put in the show notes the direct link to where you can buy tickets. Prices will be going up as we get closer to the conference, so you want to be sure to take advantage of the pricing now. Get that early bird ticket so you can save a little bit of money. There is limited, as Jared was saying, so I think we're capped at about 500. We'll also be pushing out an email to all BulkLoads members here soon. So whenever you see that email come through, you can click it there, but it would be best to go ahead and go to the website and buy them now.
Attending the Bulk Freight Conference is a 10x play.
It is a 10x play.
You will actually absolutely reap the rewards.
Yep.
This is an investment and time that you want to make sure and be down here. So we want to see you there. I'm so excited. I can't. Yeah. So cool. Well, before we close out of here, as always, man, we want to pray for those out there who need prayers. We have a prayer email. It's prayer@bulkloads.com, and we would love to pray for you. One thing, and I always want to just share things we do. A lot of people don't know, but we actually have, we get together 3 times a week here at our office, and we do a prayer. And that is something that we started actually last year. I wish we would have started years ago. And it, I think, has just been so overwhelmingly good for our office and being able to share our faith. And we want to share with others out there as well. But man, we encourage you to pray in your workspace, pray with your coworkers, with your family, and it'll just have just 10x rewards.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, cool. Awesome. Well, before we close out of here, also make sure if you found this beneficial, share this on any platforms that you're consuming this. Share this with others that you know that could benefit. We appreciate that. That's just a favor that you can do for us to return to allow us to get this in the hands of more people that can listen. So thank you for listening to the BulkLoads Podcast. And as always, God bless.